Hello everyone, I am at Shildon for Locomotion. So I'm just going to go and have a bit of a walk around really, come up here for a day or so and checking out the area. Let's see what we've got. So I think these are actually quite relatively recent. So first of all, we've got this Mark III, and now I believe this has not long actually joined the collection. I'm outside, it's a bit windy, and I've got a new microphone, so we'll see how this goes. Yeah, we're all connected. Now, believe it or not, this thing, yeah, we just get near it, basically a bus on a chassis, is a Pacer 142001, a class 142. Now, as much as people hate it, this is the first one of its sort of kind, and it's got just as much right to be as part of the collection as anything, actually. But yeah, you can see it is actually just a four-wheel chassis with what is a little bit, well, pretty much a bus body on top of it. And I've been on one and they are not very comfortable. The downside of having that four-wheel chassis, they have this tendency to bounce like that, bounce, bounce, bounce. Nodding donkeys, I think we've called them before. But you can see this is actually quite sort of fresh out of service. I think it's had a clean and been delivered. So I'm interested to see what their intention is with this loco. I say loco, it's a DMU. And of course, got D02090, sorry, and 08911 at the back there. The resident shunter. And this is actually the Darlington to Bishop Auckland line, which runs along the side of the site. And funnily enough, it's those Pacers that were in fact that used to serve this area. Now I think they've got 156s amongst other things. Yeah, I know that because I've travelled up here by train before and changing at Darlington and catching one of these things, and that was not fun. Not fun at all. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you further up to the more vintage part of the site, shall we say. We've come to the other side of the bridge now, and just sort of walking along, you have the Shildon signal box and these two accompanying buildings, and there is a station up here just a bit beyond the trees. I really shouldn't be out of breath by now. Anyway, onward. So yeah, I've just filmed that train going away, and yes, this is Shildon Station, which is pretty much a stone's throw from the museum itself. And it's seen better days, but it's still here, and that's the main thing. I think the service is roughly an hourly each way, so yeah, that's pretty much all we've got to say about the station, really. Onwards. So these are the original coal drops for the Stockton and Darlington railway, and you can see it's actually been fenced off because it's getting a lot of work done. It's a lot of, I wouldn't say redevelopment, but restoration which is going on at this point. So the buildings up at the top there isn't really much to see up there, unfortunately, but I'll take you up there anyway. But there is the ramp up at the top there, which the wagons would be pushed up, and then gravity would make it fall, or it could be tipped, sorry, into the wagons below. Fairly simple, can't go wrong with that really. But yeah, this is actually some of the original architecture which is on site here. Okay, now a bit further along from the incline really. So you can see the start of the incline going up here, which starts behind this great big thing. I think this has actually been here for quite a while actually. It's a tanker wagon really. I don't really know a great deal about these things, but it's big. That's what I'll say. Now these things are kind of interesting because I can't work them out, so I'm hoping someone could tell me a little bit more. But you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 12 axles on this wagon, and there's a same wagon here. Now it looks like something was mounted on the top, but I can't actually work out what it was for, or whether these worked in pairs carrying something in the middle. I'm not great with wagons, if I'm perfectly frank. I know a few, but I don't really study them too much, unfortunately. But yeah, another one of the strange wagons in the National Collection, I think. But if you keep wandering around here, there is this small cottage building. Yeah, again, I'm not actually sure what this is. I should have probably actually read up what these buildings were before I started talking to the camera. Maybe someone can tell me. But yeah, every time I've been here, I think this is my 3rd time which I've been up here, maybe 4th. But oh yeah, that means that I should have actually read about this thing by now. But anyway, yeah, this area has never really been accessible, sadly. But yeah, it's just the old buildings which are here, which have been here since the days of Hackworth. You'll have to excuse the hammering and the work, as there looks like they're re-roofing over there. But this is a Soho shed. This is Timothy Hackworth's original workshops. Unfortunately, it's not open at the moment, which is a shame, but it looks like there's a lot of work going on, so better safe to keep the public out, I suppose. And you can see here there's an incline for wagons to be pushed up. I'm presuming that'd have been for like coal, and what there is a water tanker. So yeah, good stuff. So again, this is Timothy Hackworth's house. As you can see, it's very much closed. It's, when I was last in there years ago, there was essentially a display of different eras of what the house looked like. I'm not sure what the intention is with it now, but it's actually quite a small house. It's not massive. Actually, I stand corrected. This is Soho Shed, which is also closed. Yeah, Timothy Hackworth's original. workshop, and this is where he lived and worked for a brief time. It's quite interesting as you walk around the streets of Shildon as well, because you can imagine these being the places where the railway workers would have lived. They'd have lived here, and further back down where the railway museum actually is would have been their works, the workshop where they went and they built wagons and things. Yeah, that's what your community would have been like. I think you'd have lived and worked and were born and probably died in the area. But how things have changed, really. But now I've got to walk all the way back to the main museum building. So here we go. So I've made it back on the fairly windy front apron, actually. Now, years ago, this is actually where the final gathering of the A4s was. So there was 6 A4s all lined up across the front there. In fact, sometimes one of them was actually running on the demonstration track up here, which, if we just walk over, you can see, as you can see, is the water tank of a saddle tank loco, a boiler, Queen Mary brake van, I think it is, the new Mark III. I say new, they're about 40 years old, but you get the point. So one thing you will just be able to see is it's not very viewable, and it's in a no entry area, unfortunately, is the HHA Hopper wagon, which is one of the types of wagons which Shildon built. Is it like 13,000 or 11,000 or something they built? There is actually a good example inside, so we'll wander in. So back in the main building now, and it's a little bit quieter in here, so I'll keep my voice down a little bit. But we've got the HST prototype, which is standing next to probably one of my favourite locos in the collection, is Deltic. Now this was part of sort of an experiment, and this differs from the production ones in a couple of ways. Mainly is the housing for the, what would have been for a Mars light on the American locos, if it ever sold to North America. Now these things had 2 Deltic engines. Now the difference between this one, this prototype, and the production ones, amongst some of the obvious things, is I believe it ran on marine Deltic engines, and the production ones had rail specific ones. But it's an absolutely gorgeous loco with the whiskers, and these are actually, I want to say molded, but they're embossed. They're sort of a metal on the front, and obviously built by English Electric up at Preston. But if I walk round to the left, you get a sort of an idea on how big this loco is. I mean, my head height comes up to here. She's gargantuan. But moving along, we have another piece of history, really, with the APTE of Advanced Passenger Train Experimental. Now this differed from the APTP, which was an electric loco, as this was actually gas turbine. And we can actually have a wander up and have a look inside the cab, which I had a look earlier. You can't really see very well, but it's very claustrophobic looking. The front window is actually quite small, and as you can see, these side windows, and there's me, are actually very small indeed. Now this is actually part of a full carriage experimental train, so you had these experimental bogies which were for the tilt mechanism. Yeah, tilting, which was something that we were actually quite early in developing on our railways. I think the Italians got there first, but this was an active tilt system. I think it did 150 something odd miles an hour. It was a record breaker at its time. And then moving around, we got something a little bit more traditional, shall we say, which is number 5000, which is numerically the first Black 5. The first actual one built was 5020, but I believe this is probably a Derby built example actually. Or was it Crew? Crew? Yeah, Crew. It's a Crew built example, the first Crew built one. This one has actually steamed in preservation, but not for about 30 or 40 years. Yeah, 1935 Crew. There we go. So yeah, it's in this showroom condition really. We'll have a walk around. Okay. So this one's actually a little bit interesting because this actually was given to the museum by David Shepherd, the wildlife artist, and it was in fact given to him as a trade for a helicopter which was donated by him for fighting poachers in South Africa. I read the board earlier, that's how I know that. Let's have a move on. Saloon City, number 75S. I don't really know a great deal about these. Yeah, shunting locos for the underground. As you can see where the great big electric shoes are. I don't think this would have run in quite a long time actually. I don't know when this would have been withdrawn from service. We have an earlier tamping machine from 1949. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Well, with the tamping machines, what they actually do is the ballast in the ground. As you can see, these sort of claw things. Sort of. Well, they sort of shake the ballast and get the track to settle into the ballast. Yeah, let's keep moving. Velocipedes. I'm not fit enough to do that. Now we've come up to two quite yeah, anyway, whatever she said. So, this is the 1975 built replica of Samparai, or Samparai, which is in fact a replica of this loco. Now, Samparai was Stevenson's opponent, challenger, whatever you want to say, at the Rainhill trials, and this was Timothy Hackworth's effort. Now, what the Stevensons did, which was very different, was the Stevensons had a multiple tube boiler. There's multiple tubes which go through. But what actually Hackworth had done, which was ever so slightly different, was this was where the fire was made, and there was one big return pipe which came back and up through this chimney, up there. Yeah. So with Saint-Péray, there is a conspiracy theory, and the conspiracy is that the cylinders were actually contracted out to the Stevensons to manufacture, and I think they did the casting, in fact. And and on the day of the trials, I think the final day actually, there was the cylinders actually cracked, and there's a lot of accusations of sabotage by the Stevensons. But I don't think that would have really made any difference, because Saint-Péray was the end of the development of a loco, and rocket was the start. So you may recall outside that I was talking about the pacer. Well, this is kind of where that idea sort of started, in that they essentially took rail chassis and put Leyland buses on them, and to be honest, they really didn't turn out that well, and that's kind of where the pacer came from. The genesis of the pacer idea, taking it easily to manufacture parts like the bus and sticking it on a rail chassis, and I don't think it really did anything for anyone. Like, it's not, yeah. And so I've got two locos here now. We have the Hardwick, which is the London North Western Railway express passenger loco, and this was one of the ones which, it was a record breaker in itself, in that it had the highest average speed from would have been London Euston. Let's have a look. I can't remember where they ended, actually. I don't know whether it was the Glasgow services or up to Crewe or what have you. But yeah, this was an average speed of 67.1 miles an hour, which Victorian times was, well, it was like going on a Saturn 5, you know. People hadn't seen those sorts of speeds, maybe 20 or 30 miles an hour on a carriage, but not on an express passenger loco. I mean, if you used to, well, back when the Liverpool and Manchester opened, people thought that they would suffocate if they would do 30 miles an hour, which we know is wrong. But we can keep going further along, actually. So this is actually coupled to these Royal Train carriages, which is for Queen Alexandra, who was married to King Edward VII. So, pre-First World War. Yeah, pre-First World War. So, you can imagine there would have been some of the staff. And I think up here, you can see how this is actually the rest of the APT on this side. But we have the saloon carriages. So we'll go up here and have a look. They are quite plush. Right, so yeah, we would have a quick look in here. I mean, I mean, even modern first class has got nothing compared to this, so I can imagine this would have been staff, hangers on or what have you, whoever. And I think this was the main dining room. Yeah. Now, I've never actually been in one of these, and I don't think I'll ever get to go in one. But, and I've been told that in here there's a bathroom, a toilet, and a dressing room. But this is for Queen Alexandra, and if you can look in here, here's the bed, which is actually quite small. My feet would be sticking off the end of that, I think. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how crash worthy it would be, but yep, very comfortable indeed. And we can go actually across the hallway to the director's saloon. Now, the directors, they wanted to go and see their railway, they wanted to go and look at it, they wanted to go and check it all and inspect works and things, and so they would take this coach, and they could probably have a drink and a smoke as they went along, and you've got this quite wide, quite a good view actually outside of the windows, and you can go and inspect work which is going on. You can see me again. There we are. Yeah. And this little thing is a sentinel shunter, which is kind of a little bit hidden behind here. But going in, now these are some of the earliest carriages actually, and this was from the Stockton and Darlington Railway. Yes, I was looking for a note on where that was. But if we look at the second class, and you can see that the second class is pretty much just a padded bench, no toilet facilities, no catering, no nothing. And if you compare it to the first class compartment, which is a little bit nicer, but it's still quite close together, I think. Bang, bang, bang. And so what would happen with this is that the guard would actually sit on the top. See, compared to that roof, it's actually quite a lot lower. But also, baggage would go up on here as well. And the baggage would be looked after by the guard or the steward. So this is a fireless locomotive, and this worked in a paper mill because fire and paper doesn't really work. So the fire would be generated in an external boiler somewhere on the site, and you would essentially fill the steam up from a tap and it would work all day, and a bit like filling up a car, I suppose. And at the end of the day, or when it needed filling, you'd go and fill it up with more steam. So it's essentially a great big steel tank. Not really much on the back head. You can see there's a regulator, there's a gauge glass, and obviously the brake and things, but nothing really else to do with it really. And the other interesting thing about these is they're sort of back to front with the cylinders underneath the cab. Very interesting. I don't think I know of any heritage lines that run these now. Don't think they really have this infrastructure to cope with them, and they're really only used for shunting and industrial use really. So I've actually come to the other corner now, near the workshop, and similar to the Samparai, which is over at the other side of the building, this is actually a replica of Locomotion. Now the original Locomotion is currently at the head of steam in Darlington, but I believe it's actually being moved. Excuse the hammering. And this was an early electric loco as well. Bully loco? I'm not sure. Class 71. Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about these electric locos, and I'm not really that knowledgeable on them. So I can't really tell you much more. But the pantograph is extended, and it's actually quite tall when it's actually fully extended. I hope they move it actually before they move the loco. Now I believe these were actually outside for quite a long time. Some kind of a water tank or an oil tank. And again, water or oil tank, something like that. Now this unit behind is the second half of a unit which is further up the building, which I'll show you shortly. So we're going to go back up here to this Siphon G, which is a, well, basically for carrying milk. So with the old churns of milk when they was bought by rail. In the First and Second World War, actually, as ambulances. Okay. So we have a mooch further up. We have this Southern Railways horse box, built in 1936. And if you say you would have taken the horse, put it in this side, and your staff could have sat in here, and there's actually 3 notches where the horse would stick its head through, and you could look after it on its journey to the races or to a trainer or wherever, which I think means that this actually also had its own sort of facilities in there as well. So you had your works, well, where you sat, and you had the toilet just behind you. Wagons, I'm not sure about these ones. Yeah. Another Southern unit, and a tanker wagon. I kind of find wagons actually more interesting. And poking out behind here is a teak carriage. This is kind of inaccessible really. This is probably the best view we can get of it. But as you can see, it needs a lot of restoration. There's quite a few of those about the country, and they actually look really, really nice when they're done up. But something with the wooden body carriages is that they were phased out because when a wooden body gets involved in an accident, it just splinters and crashes. It's not very safe. So yeah, this is the 4-core unit. Corridor unit, there would have been, this is only one, but there'd have been 4 carriages long. They're electric. You can see here it would have picked up the electric from the 3rd rail. And these are Southern units. Not really my area. And now going back to the wagon which is outside, this is the HHA Hopper. Now you can see here there's 3 sort of sections, and what they would do is this would be full of coal, and there'd be a train, hugely long train of them, but as it goes through the unloading facility, the facility would have pushed these arms which would have released the doors underneath. I wonder if we can look underneath. There'd have been doors underneath here, which would then drop the coal. So it's actually a bit of a time and labour saver that. It's actually fairly interesting type of wagon, and they're quite chunky. I mean, 32 tonnes each. And you imagine if you've got a train which has got 30 of those wagons, you can do the maths. And this is the sort of wagon it would have actually replaced. You can see they're quite basic, really. Now, I don't think these necessarily dropped anywhere. So, yeah, they are what they are, unfortunately. And this always catches me out. The cattle wagon. No. Yeah, it's a cattle wagon. What do you really want to know about it? You put cattle in it. It probably gets covered in horse crap. Or cow crap. Cow crap. The horse box is for the horse crap. Okay, so we've actually slowly making our way around. So we have Juno here, which is an austerity saddle tank. Now these were built during the war well, originally built during the war. They actually continued to be built for industrial reuse as a simple austerity design to use as little material as possible. And they're actually, for the size of their loco, they're fairly powerful, which made them good for industrial networks. And they have quite a short wheelbase. See, although they're 060s, the wheelbase between them is actually fairly short. And what this meant is a lot of them went into industrial service after and during the war, in fact. And as they're fairly cheap and fairly simple to maintain, they're actually quite popular with the heritage lines as well. Let's keep walking around. And this is something we have on the left, which is a North Eastern Railway snow plough. You'd have had this on, you'd have had 2 or 3 locos all lined up, because shifting snow takes a lot of power. And you would have just gone along and just banged the snow out the way. Just whoomp, off to the sides, off to the sides. And there is actually a fascinating film called Snow, which you can find on YouTube. It was made in 1963, and Snowdrift at Bleeth Gill, which was what was on this screen earlier today. Now we've come on to one of the other interesting parts of the collection. Is number 251, which is the large boilered Atlantic. And it's called an Atlantic because of the wheel arrangement of 442. So these sort of locos ran on the Great Northern Railway, and they predated the A1s, which was, Flying Scotsman was famously an A1. And they did the London to Edinburgh routes. Now these were built in Doncaster by the Great Northern Railway, and this one has actually steamed in preservation, but not for a long time. Yeah, so number 251. There is another one, a small boilered Atlantic, which I believe is at the NRM at the moment at York, of which this is an outpost. So yeah, it's a Great Northern Railway Atlantic. And we have part of a crane, or a crane, dated from 1850, so that's actually fairly old. This wagon is dated, I don't know when this is dated actually. But we also have a fire engine, a Gateshead fire engine. Yeah. So Actually, looking at this unit, we'll go and have a look at the other half of it, which is around the corner. So this is the other half, which has been completely restored. And in this side it's done in the original BR blue and grey. And for the younger amongst us, which I can just sort of remember this, is the Network South East livery. Yeah, it's quite like the Network South East, as it's quite bright. So come on to a few other interesting parts of the collection again. We have here the Wagon Lead Compagnie Internationale de Wagon et des Grands Express. So this is the Paris to London boat train. Essentially, it would leave from Victoria, I believe, and head out to get the ferry over to France, and essentially kind of part of the Orient Express, really. Now, what's different about this coach is that typically the Orient Express coaches were quite wide. They were built to burn gauge, which is about a foot or so wider than the UK loading gauge. Now, this is actually within the British loading gauge, so it could run straight from Victoria, loaded on the boat train. You'd stay in the carriage even during the shipping, and then you'd theoretically just get off at in Paris. And it's quite luxurious though. If we walk up and have a look at what's going on in there. Clomp, clomp, clomp. See that? So you've got two bunks and the ladder, and also you have your seating area, and you can see where the seating area could be closed off as well. And this is one of the probably the prize exhibits of Shildon, is Green Arrow. Now this is a V2, and this is actually quite interesting because it's cylinders, including the middle cylinder, because these are a 3-cylinder engine, is a monoblock casting on this one, which makes it so difficult to restore, because I believe that the casting on this one's become cracked. But these were built during the war, and just prior to the war, in fact. But they actually proved their worth because they were a mixed traffic engine, which could actually pull an express passenger, but also were fairly powerful goods engines. And during the war, when any loco was useful, the V2 was a fantastic loco. And Green Arrow itself is actually beautiful, with the apple green livery, which you may recall being Flying Scotsman's signature livery. Where we go up, we've got the green LNER on the tender, which is actually very similar to the Great Northern green. There we go up here. We have a look, and now what the LNER did, which was quite significant, was they gave the drivers a lot more conveniences. So when it came to driving locos. They actually gave them proper bucket seats. Now, on the left here is the driver's position, and everything that the driver needs is actually within reach. So if we just sort of look around, you can see the air brake and the reverser, and of course the regulator. It's all in easy reach, and some of the controls are actually doubled up over on the fireman's side as well. Now, until about 2008, I think it was, Green Arrow was actually working on the main line, but unfortunately, because of her cracked cylinder block, she's not going anywhere for now. There's a lot of calls to get her restored, and for me not to fall on my arse coming down here. Yeah. So this is quite a curious thing. Is this quiet afternoon in Cloud Cuckoo Valley? This was actually working earlier, and these things all go round, the train goes backwards and forwards. It's kind of a bit mad, but fascinating to watch. The children were absolutely enthralled by it. Okay, so where you've got the Hardwick, which is an LNWR design, this is also an LNWR, and this is a Super D, and if you look, it's got 8 coupled wheels, so 4 this side, 4 the other side, and it's a freight engine, and these are really designed for absolute slogging on gradients with heavy loads, essentially. Unfortunately, I can't get round to there because it's blocked off, but yeah, this is again one of the National Collection locos that belong to the country. Okay, we are going to make our way back round to the front. Okay. Okay, so we have a wall flat wagon, which were designed really for carrying tanks and things. Simple enough, really. And this wagon is actually behind this North Eastern Railway engine, which is an M1 class. There's 440, express passenger they would have been. And yeah, this sort of around about the same period as the Hardwick over on the other track. And they are built at Gateshead, which is kind of appropriate for this region, really. Yeah. And you see how this northeastern green is actually slightly lighter than the Great Northern Green of the Atlantic over there. So northeastern. So I've come back round, and we have here 34051 Winston Churchill. Now this is a Battle of Britain class loco, and it has its name, and it's actually quite famous for being the loco to carry Winston Churchill on his final journey on his funeral, because he was the last person to have a funeral train really in the UK, and he was taken, well, pulled behind this loco, which is in pretty much showroom condition. It was restored a few years ago and completely repainted, and yeah, that's the Winston Churchill.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.